Welcome. This video was recorded live on World Sake Day, October 1st, 2020. It is a replay of one of the many sake presentations and panels that were live streamed at Sake Day USA, an online sake festival and fundraiser benefiting the American Sake Association, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The purpose of our nonprofit is to develop approachable and easy to understand sake education materials, as well as to provide affordable access to sake tastings and interactive events. If this presentation was of value to you, please consider a tax-deductible donation to the American Sake Association. To donate, please scan the QR code on the screen or visit our website at americansakeassociation.org. Thank you. Enjoy the video and kanpai.
Hey, Chris.
Nice to see you. Thanks. I love the cooking outfit. The aprons on, ready to rock and roll.
I'm in Tamiko's kitchen, so I gotta look. I gotta have the look.
Look the part, yeah.
And I'm representing my friends at Hanyato and Kamonegi with my Drink Sake Stay Soba apron. It was a gift for me when Russell realized that I probably don't cook at home that often, so it's been keeping my clothes clean for the last 6 months.
That's it. Aprons are the forgotten weapon in the kitchen, I feel like. I've ruined way too many t-shirts like, oh, it'll be fine, I won't make a mess. Splash oil. Mm-hmm. So the aprons are a key component to our cooking world. So are you guys excited for Sake Day? I mean, we kind of celebrated a little bit yesterday with Japan, but wow, this is really fun.
It's really fun. It's a really nice way to feel connected to everyone.
Agreed. So I think, I would love to know what everyone is drinking. If you guys have anything, or do you have? All right. Wow. Maybe we can start off with a little bit of that, because you can't cook without a little sake, right? You need a little bit here. It goes a little bit in the sauce and a little bit for you. I think that's always how I cook. Right?
Absolutely, Jesse. In a full agreement. And I learned that trick from my dad. Always has a sake in his hand when he's in the kitchen.
Awesome. Just like my father.
Yeah, and then it feels like fun instead of work.
Exactly. It should always be fun. You're having sake. All right. So a little kanpai.
Kanpai.
Kanpai. Happy Sake Day, everyone.
Happy Sake Day.
Oh yeah, that's going down. That's going down way too smooth already.
Oh. Ooh, we got a kanpai from London. That's nice.
Oh. We're slowly adding our international flair to the Sake Day US, which is really important.
Love it.
It's never had a live map of the world to see where everyone is.
Yeah.
A day for everybody, not just for us. So it's super fantastic. Loving the fact that we have this many people interested in sake. I love to cook. I'm sure Jesse, Monica know that. They've maybe seen some posts during this COVID craziness. We've been cooking up a storm. But I'm really excited to learn these dishes that Tamiko and Monica are going to prepare. Learn about how the components that we were just mentioning, salt, acid, fat, and umami, kind of play off and pair with sake. So this is a crazy exciting seminar for me, and I'm sure for all of those out there watching right now. I know we're a minute or so early, but Jesse, if you have any pre-questions, I feel like we can hand it over to the team and let them get started.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Jesse. I will say, too, people in Hawaii are complaining about being up this early and drinking, but I see that we have people from Japan on the participants. I just saw that Miho Fujita from Yuho and Ishikawa signed in, and it's not even 5 in the morning there yet, so no excuse to not kanpai today.
Exactly. No excuses. That's right, Monica. No excuses. It is sake no hi, or the day of sake. So, agreed. I mean, very interesting. I think what has really brought us together with sake. I mean, sake is an amazing tool that has brought so many people together. It has, I have so many amazing memories with it. And along with sake, to me, there was always a food component there. And as a restaurateur myself, I feel that that beautiful relationship between food and sake is just a match made in heaven. And I'm so honored for you guys, for you ladies, to be able to kind of guide us down that road of all of these combinations and understanding what happens with all of those tastes. CJ and I were actually going to do a little cook-off, you know, as one of the segments. And I mean, I'm just so honored that you ladies are going to kind of show off to us. And then we're going to have to, I think later on, we're going to have to do a little cook-off as well. And maybe we should have, like, you know, maybe our style versus yours, between Tamiko and Monica, and then maybe CJ and myself will do a little total cook-off. Let's battle it out. I love it.
Sounds great.
Yeah, because I mean, there's just a follow-up. Not only to this day, you know, there's going to be lots of other events to come, but sake and food, there's just so many combinations, hundreds, thousands of combinations that we can truly do. We can keep that segment going on for years. So I'm excited. I hope that all of you are excited. And it's 4 o'clock. Let's get started. Let's talk food and sake.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
And Jesse, we are ready for that showdown whenever you are.
Yes.
I don't think you know how competitive Tamiko and I are. You haven't seen a woman with a ping pong paddle in her hands. She's
wow, nice.
So thank you guys so much for having us. I think just to introduce myself, I'm Monica. I'm the director of sake for Vine Connections. Been in the industry for a long time, been in New York for a long time. And Tamiko Ishidate, who I work very closely with, she's the director of sake for the state of California for RNDC and Young's Market Company. In the last 7 years that I've worked for Vine Connections, she's become a really, really good friend and supporter. And we do a lot together. We both teach for the WSET for the level 3 in sake. Tamiko is master taster, sort of kikizake maestro, and she's an amazing cook. And so she was actually Tamiko's idea to pull this event together. And she lives in Northern California and I live in New York, and so we're used to kind of being able to share the stage together in normal times, but it's been a while. So thanks for this opportunity. We had a lot of fun putting this together. So I'm just going to let Tamiko talk a little bit about the concept of the salt, fat, acid, umami. You guys have probably seen the Netflix show, Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, and just kind of got the ball rolling for us. So I will turn it over to Tamiko.
Monica, thank you for the introduction. It's been great working with you all these years. And when we get to marry, like, our personal interest with work, that's the best, isn't it? So for me, like, being in the sake industry is such an extension of my natural interest in food and beverage, especially in terms of pairing. It's been such a great journey, and Monica representing such a wonderful line of jizake. We had fun just choosing, you know, what would go with what, and it was so hard to narrow down. It's so much in sake, but yeah, today we will be featuring 4 sakes against flavors of salt, fat, acid, and umami. Again, the inspiration of the theme came from the Salt, Fat, Acid, and Heat. That's a Netflix series, like Monica said, by Sami Nosrat. But we changed the heat to umami because it is the essence of delicious food from all over the world, and one of the foundation, really, of Japanese cooking. The truth is that every delicious food, including Japanese, is a combination of all 4. All the elements, you know, that come together to really create this synergy and a balance. But indeed today, well, the segments are really discussed individually to kind of highlight the particular flavor components. But at the end of the day, most of the dishes actually are featured balance of all four. And we look forward to talking about that and how sake enhances each flavors. And in turn, the food enhances the enjoyment of sake. All right, Monica?
So before we get into talking about salt, I wanted to introduce the sake that will be pairing with salt. And so, like Tamiko said, obviously the most amazing sake pairing dishes have all four, but we wanted to start building up slowly. And so both on the food side and the sake side. And so I was trying to think about a sake that really made sense with salt. And, you know, as you guys know, great Honjozo, one of the wonderful things about Honjozo is it's a really great, like, continuous drinking sake. It doesn't weigh too heavy on your palate. It's very linear and clean when it's made well, and it doesn't have a lot of umami. It doesn't have a lot of acidity. And so having something that was a little more straightforward to pair with just salt, I thought would be really fun. And so we chose the Tensei Endless Summer Tokubetsu Honjozo. And so not only is this a really great Honjozo that is lower in umami, lower in acidity, just really refreshing, there's a ton of salinity in this sake. It's one of the few sake, it's one of the only sakes in the Shonan region in Japan, which is the beach region of Japan. And a lot of people, and it's here in this frame, a lot of people, I think, don't think that soft water makes the best sake, and soft water certainly makes a very specific style of sake, and it's wonderful for making these really opulent, perfumed Ginjo style sakes. But you know, for the longest time, there's been this identity of masculine style sake, which has this great structure, and I think the minerality in the water here and the salinity really contributes. And you know, with wine, we don't always pair like with like, but you do pair like a salty sherry with salty foods. And I really love in that same way having this like kind of saltier Honjozo with a saltier dish. And then I was just thinking Tamiko is going to talk a little more about salt culturally in Japan and the idea of salt and sake. But, you know, I remember I have kind of a love-hate relationship with these masu cups. And but the first time I drank out of a masu was with salt on the edge of the masu, and it's not something that you would do with a really, really elegant or very, very delicate sake, but with a sturdy, more masculine style of sake, it can be really fun to see how the salt transforms the sake and just kind of like wakes up all the different elements in the sake.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, salt, as you can imagine, is one of the salt is actually of the Netflix series actually takes place in mostly in Japan, and because it's in an island nation with so long coastal lines altogether, I mean, it's just a country of seabeds basically, and we have so many, I mean, thousands of different kinds of salt in Japan. And they say actually, to Jesse's earlier point, and nobody in Japan really just drinks sake. We always have tsumami or something to snack on. Usually they're a little bit salty and kind of enhance the enjoyment, especially bringing out kind of a sweetness and umami in sake. And salt is the foundation of that. So they say, if you're too poor to buy fancy tsumami, you just have a dish of salt in front of you. And in fact, you're gonna dip your finger and then lick the salt and then chase with sake. And it really changes the way the sake tastes. Let's try that, Monica, shall we?
Let's do it. So for me, when I have the sake by itself, it has more of like the yeasty quality. Tensei, since they make beer, they make pizza, they make sake, they're kind of these yeast savants, and I get almost like a fortune cookie or pizza dough, pizza crust kind of quality along with the fruit. But that savory goes away for me with the salt, and it brings out so much of the fruit, like the green apple Jolly Ranchers, like kind of like candied apple.
Totally, yeah. And interesting, it's almost like the also highlights this kind of minerality finish in the yeah, because of the kind of like the to me Tensei is always has this kind of a taste of brewing water, like almost like it's kind of a really hint of oceans, you know, and that kind of is brought in the finish when you actually taste it with salt. So it becomes sweet and kind of more fruit, and then in the finish you feel minerality. Yeah, nice way to really enjoy the sake, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it. All right. So I think moving on to fat. So the sake that Tamiko and I selected for the fat is Ginga Shizuku, Divine Droplets. It's a very opulent, luxurious style of sake. But I really love that we're doing this with this pairing because I think some people feel like Daiginjo is too delicate to pair with anything other than like really light, clean foods. But there's something so luxurious about pairing a luxurious Daiginjo with a really like luxurious textured dish. If it's like butter poached lobster or a cream sauce or just that like really opulent fat that coats your palate can just be so like hedonistic. And there is something about the fat and ginjo-ka that really plays well together if we're staying away from umami. And so as we said earlier, we are layering here. So we're going to explore, we've explored salt, and now we're going to explore salt plus fat. Just a couple more things about the sake. It is a Yamagata sake. You can see down here they have a GI Yamagata. They're very proud. They recently achieved geographical indication status. And so in that sense, this is 100% Yamagata made sake made with Dewa Sansan rice, which only grows in this region, really known for having kind of a grassy, spicy characteristic that I think gives a lot of lift to Daiginjos that can sometimes, some Daiginjos are a little more, a little less bright and less spicy. And I think this really kind of gives it a nice structure. And it's also made with Yamagata yeast. It's a Yamagata version of yeast number 9 with another more aromatic Yamagata yeast, M301. So
I just want to say that's one of my favorite sake. And right before, I just ran to my cupboard and I grabbed some truffle salt. That was the first time I really even tried like a different type of salt. So I just like threw some truffle salt on my palate and then tasted my sake. It totally changed the whole dynamic. It was truly beautiful. It's such a beautiful experience for any of you out there wanting to just try simple salt rim, you could say, to sake. Great idea. Thank you so much.
I love that you chose the truffle salt, Jesse, because I feel like truffle is a controversial, like truffle is controversial in the food world, right? Like so many people like, oh, it's too much. Why are you just killing the subtleties? And sake is about subtlety, but sake works where a lot of other beverages don't, you know, and you can pair with fermented flavors and pickled foods and things like truffle, and it actually harmonizes together, which is really interesting.
Yeah, it totally did. It didn't overtake it. It kind of made its own little like thing there, and it was beautiful. Thank you.
Awesome.
So I'll let Tamiko introduce the dish here, which I'm very excited.
Ready? Yes. We have a little video clip for you.
Japanese love fluke. It's a type of flounder, and we eat it various ways, from raw to fried to simmered. But if you can get a sashimi-grade fresh fluke, it's a treat to have it sliced transparent thin and have it with delicious light soy sauce, ponzu, or salt and oil, like the way we are having today. It's especially sweeter in the winter season. The skinning takes some practice, but once you get a hang of it, it's not that hard. Don't disregard the fin or engawa. It has a nice layer of fat and crunchy muscle that is considered a delicacy.
Tamiko, you deliver?
I did. Which one? The finished one or the fresh fish? That might be, former might be possible.
I got the sake, DI, basically very similar ingredients as to what Monica just mentioned, so I'm ready. My door's open. Send that over right away.
And Tamiko, I have to say, I cannot take a fish off the skin if anyone is watching me, and the fact that you did that so perfectly with the camera, and you got the engawa perfectly, I bow down to that. But I'd love to hear about the composition of this dish, because you'd think that living in Manhattan, I'd be able to find pink peppercorns really easily. And I actually had to go to 3 stores, and I thought about not using it, but when I added the pink peppercorn, it totally changed the dish. So I'd love to hear about the kind of rationale.
Absolutely, yes. So the fish is quite plain, the fluke itself just has a maybe subtle, sweetness, but it's more enjoyed for texture. And usually Japanese like it, again, if it's gonna be eaten raw, the best way always is to slice them really thin to really accentuate this kind of textural flavor. And because of the fish itself is so kind of more plain or simple, sometimes we do like kelp cure, like kobujime. But in this case, with additional salt and peppercorn and the oil, the olive oil, which kind of blends the whole thing together, with sake's, ethyl caparate, which is, and after all, it's a part of fatty acid. So I think personally, it goes better with a plant-based fat, like oil, like olive oil. It's a beautiful, like texturally, you mentioned earlier, Monica, but also I think it's a flavor kind of melds with each other. It's almost like a chemically, it's a marriage. It really changes the experience from not having oil, just salt and the hiramine. It kind of, the fruitiness of the sake is a little bit too overwhelming to me, but by adding the peppercorn and oil, that really does it. It's a beautiful combination.
Yeah, I just tried it together for the first time. I have to say I think we always, when we learn about pairing sake with food, you always hear, you have to be careful with too much ginjoka. It's going to make certain things taste bitter. And that's true with, like food that has a lot of MSG for me, or like kind of reduced soy sauce. But this just, the richness of the olive oil makes the sake so silky. It's a really, really wonderful to see how the texture totally changes with the sake.
Oh, that is just so gorgeous. I become speechless when I have a wonderful pairing in my mouth. And I am proud of my engawa. Not easy. That was actually 2 takes.
Wow. No, it's perfect. All right, well, let's move on to acid. So as we've been saying, we are building here. So we started out with just salt, and now we have salt and fat together using a very clean fish with very, very low umami. And now we're building on acid. And so thinking about acidity, we wanted to use a white koji sake that produces a lot of citric acid. And especially as you'll see, we are kind of talking about citrus and lemon as we introduce this dish. So we work with a white koji sake from Fukucho and Hiroshima, made by one of the few female toji in Japan who also owns her own company. It's her family brewery. And Tamiko and I are both total fangirls of Miho Imada. She's such an inspiring woman. And what really inspires me about her is she never wants to talk about being a woman who makes sake. Like, that's the least thing that you could talk to her about. She's so much more excited to tell you about the modern decisions she's making in her brewery, and how proud she is of where she's located. And so her brewery is not only the birthplace of Ginjo, being in Akitsu with extremely soft water, but it's on the Hiroshima coastline. It's sitting on the Seto Inner Island Sea, which is famous for having the most oyster beds in Japan, but also so famous for lemons. If you go to Hiroshima, you can't get out of the train station without seeing like so many lemon kind of tourist gifts. And when you hear citrus in Japan, people always think yuzu, sudachi, these exotic citrus, but this is really just lemon. And so using the white koji and creating that citric acid is just so evocative of that Hiroshima coastline. And she wanted to experience the seaside, and it's if you read Japanese, it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek name because the first character is for sea, and then this is fudo, which means kind of like the seaside or the coastline, and so it's called seafood in Japan. But people take things very literally in America, so we thought if we called a sake seafood, all the shellfish allergy people would not drink it, and so so it's Seaside. It's sparkling.
Hilarious.
It's actually made like a pet nat, if you guys are natural wine drinkers. So it is bottled while it's still fermenting. So the results are a little more unpredictable. And like a pet nat, the bubble is very creamy and very soft. It's not as intense as sake made through secondary fermentation. And it kind of explains why there's no disgorgement. And so there is a cloudiness. It's not from the rice dissolving, but this is just from the fermenting in the bottle.
I have to comment on that label as well. That's a beautiful label. Very, very cool.
Yeah, it's so cute. All of the
So
things
cute.
you find in the Seto Inner Island Sea.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we talk about the dish?
Please.
Yes.
Zucchini has an underlying sweetness that comes out especially when cooked. The batter is a classic La Pastella. It's flour and water mixture almost half and half, depending on the gluten level of the flour. But I add just a small amount of rice flour to the mix. Only trick with the frying is to keep the batter cold while you're cooking, and then also to use clean hot oil and never overcrowd a pan. Here we get to build upon the 4 themes, adding salt, acid, and umami to a food that's fried and therefore contains fatty element. Watch how a rather plain vegetable like zucchini transforms into a delicious snack or a side dish.
So I'm so excited to try this. I told Tamiko, but I live in a 600 square foot studio with really bad ventilation, and the kitchen is so small. If I tried to fry in there, I would be in a lot of trouble. So I'm very sorry, but I have these corn chips that have lime, like very intense lime.
Okay. All right. That would do, Monica. That is a fair substitution considering your living situation. My zucchini became a little bit soft because it's been sitting out for a while.
But I still want to know, how did those chips taste with the sake though?
Oh my gosh, chips and sake are so good, right?
Right? That's what I want to say, yeah.
And even really like intense chips, like Cheetos, and Doritos, where I don't think there's a wine pairing for Cheetos, maybe, but it's a great pairing. And this sake, I was doing a virtual tasting with this last night where someone from Spain was saying this reminded them of like a Basque cider. Like it has that yeasty salinity and like kind of savory with that citrus. And it made so much sense. And it really, it lifts up the sake and makes the chips taste a lot more interesting. And I'm sure if I was trying something actually delicious like the zucchini, it would be a magical experience.
Yeah. And I've been hearing more and more. I mean, I know all of us as sake drinkers, we enjoy sake with practically everything. And otsumamis are some of the best times. It's about that snack, the snackable, just little things to be able to get to. And even chips fall into that category of just like, chips and sake. Yeah, that's awesome.
So Tamiko, tell us what's happening.
Yes. I'm the only one with actual zucchini in front, so I better say something, yeah? So it's very interesting. So with fried zucchini with just salt, the Seaside, Fukucho Seaside works more as a palate cleanser. It's really lifty, accentuate acidity, alcohol. But with the lemon, it works the other way around. It's almost like the creaminess, the frothiness of this, pet nut, beautiful texture of Seaside come through. And also, flavors a little more, brighter overall. Yeah, it works really well with the salt. But so originally, this dish was supposed to stop here because it's about acidity. However, for fun, I did actually experiment sprinkling some grated Parmesan cheese on this zucchini, fried zucchini, and it took it to another level. Sometimes surprising things happen. Oh.
Yeah, I'm in for that. Parmesan cheese on everything.
The umami bomb of sake and Parmesan cheese, I mean, that's a match made in heaven as well. Yes, right?
This is a thumbs up.
Yes.
Highly recommended. Little sprinkle umami.
I love it. And that's a perfect segue. So speaking of, we have really fun kind of journey to close this out. And so we an extremely complex, extremely umami-rich sake to go with these next two dishes that Tamiko is going to show us. This is sake from Fukui Prefecture, Mana, 1751. The brewery was established in 1751. It's so complex. It's a Yamahai, Muroka, Genshu, Tokubetsu, Junmai. Mana, this Izumi-san, the Toji here, he was one of the first producers to be very, just very strict about not doing any tank blending. And it was a big deal for him because he went from being a very large brewery to a very small one. And as a large brewer, he couldn't brew that way. But this sake is so like idiosyncratic and layered. And what I really love, what I wanted to explain with showing this sake is that people often confuse age and umami in terms of tasting for it. You know, umami, because umami can be a lot of these age statements, right? More like roasted nuts or more caramel or coffee, I think, and you're going to hear all about aged sakes next. But I wanted to really focus on the pure umami, which this one to me, it's like buttermilk and savory yogurt and buttered mushrooms. And there's none of those like oxidative, like caramelized coffee qualities about it. It's just pure kind of fresh umami, which I think is not as common. So we'll see how the sake changes with the next two dishes.
Everyone loves Caesar salad. The ubiquitous American salad is found at almost any restaurants nowadays. With a little addition of classically Japanese ingredients in a dressing, the dish can become even more complex and delicious. A little trick I learned from a French friend a long time ago is to take out the sprout from garlic before using raw, so it won't be so sharp and garlicky. Macerate the garlic with acid before introducing other ingredients. Here, the umami-rich condiments like miso and fish sauce are added to give deeper level of umami to the dressing. And yuzukosho, or the ground Japanese citrus pepper sauce, adds a kick and shibumi, or astringency. And of course, the Parmesan cheese. Fried and super crisp age, or the fried tofu skin, is a great gluten-free alternative to a traditional crouton.
I love it, gluten-free croutons. I had never thought of the many uses of age. I really enjoyed making this dressing because there are so many different types of umami, you know, and you use all of them, right? I kept like going, first I looked at the recipe quickly and I was like, oh, interesting, there's no anchovy, because you always think about Caesar dressing and the anchovy making the umami, but then I was like, fish sauce, yuzukosho, Parmesan cheese, like there's so many layers of umami, and it's just, it looks so innocuous, and then it just kind of hits you in the face with this savory punch. It's really fun.
An amazing recipe, I have to say. That's awesome.
I'm stealing that one.
I was gonna say it as well, but
Monica, let's try it, no? With the sake?
yeah.
Yum.
Let us know what you think.
You know, it's interesting because every time I try to pair mana with seafood, it doesn't work for some reason. Even when it's like seafood where I think it really should work, like ankimo, you know, something so savory and so umami. And this is amazing with the sake. This is a green salad. And so it really, you know, the rules are all meant to be broken.
Yes. This is like a kind of rule breaking pairing. It totally works. And because I have everyone has a sort of palate that's leaning towards sort of certain taste buds, and mine is towards acidity. So my seasoning tend to be a little heavier on acid as opposed to other elements generally, and same with this dressing recipe. So if you don't like acid, you may want to cut back the lemon. in the recipe if you want a recipe at the end of the session. What I was gonna say is in this case, the acidity on acidity, I mean, mana is loaded. I mean, this is, like Monica said, their flavors are so deep and there's so many things that are like more like the savory notes, but also this deep, complex acidity that is the enjoyment of the sake. The best enjoyment is to bring those acidity to play, like to be the main player on this.
Absolutely.
And for Yamahai, actually, it's not that funky. It's really, it shows the brewer's control over what he's doing. This for Genshu, this is, the Muroka. I mean, not easy to make, Yamahai sake this clean and right at 16.5, 17% alcohol. Beautiful. Impeccable sake.
All right, so we're running a little behind. So let's get to the
Yes, let's do.
This is going to blow your mind.
Kakuni is a staple at izakaya or for a sake-friendly dinner at home. There are only a couple tricks here. One is to let the pork belly sit overnight with salt and sugar to help break down the protein. And make sure to boil the pork completely, drain and wash before you start actually simmering. It really helps to take the porkiness or the scumminess away. Here also the umami elements are added in layers, starting with the pork itself and its fat, the sake, the mirin, and soy sauce. This is fairly a classic recipe up to here, but I also add 2 secret umami ingredients.
Ginger and green onion, a classic way to take the kusami or the little smell from the food. Fast forward version.
So we will be, I know there's been a lot of questions about the recipes. We do have recipe cards that we'll make available for everybody because this is a really fun one to make. And I do, Tamiko's willing to share her secrets for this one, but the balsamic vinegar at the end, I never would have pictured that for kakuni, and it totally changes it. So, Tamiko, we have this. I know that we have the mana at Nurukan and chilled. What do you recommend with the kakuni?
Yes, so I tried it first with the room temp, slightly cold to the touch, and it works. I mean, it's beautiful. But the sake really comes together with this dish when it's heated to about 110 degrees or 43 Celsius, so about there. Please try it. So I have kanzake here. You can't, no? Just about, ちょっと hot. No. But that's okay.
It looks delicious. Looks fantastic.
Yeah, that is amazing.
What do you think, Monica? Monica versus the room temp or cold?
It's so funny because I worry about heating up Genshu sometimes because I think it's going to be too hot. And then this totally proved me wrong. Mana's not, because it's a Genshu, I haven't been serving it warm or enjoying it warm that often. And this, I think it really needs to be warm. The kakuni deserves more complexity. And so I really, it is like a hug for them.
It's really it makes the whole experience rounder and more in harmony. It's amazing. Now I have a harmony face because I have this.
I know you guys, thank you so much for having us. And I know we've overstayed our welcome a little bit. I just want to let you know, if we can go to the last slide, we've made recipe cards with all of Tamiko's secrets. And so we will send those to you guys if you're doing a follow-up email, but you can always reach out to us. Our emails are here at the bottom. And you can follow Tamiko's Kitchen on Instagram. She just started it this week, so there's nothing there yet, but she'll be putting out the recipes. And hopefully this inspired you guys to think outside the box a little bit with food and sake pairings. And a lot of the rules are meant to be broken. And so this has been so much fun. Tamiko, thank you for bringing all of your magic to this. And looking forward to the rest of the day.
Thank you so much. This was fantastic.